comment, and subscribe.
So for this episode of Let's Talk Jinx, like we do every 2 weeks, it's the patch day. So patch 11.21 notes. There aren't a lot of changes to AD carries, but there are actually a lot of changes to Jinx. So we're just going to kind of jump right into it. We already kind of talked about this a little bit last week, but Jinx, passive attack speed increased, E range increased, R cooldown decreased. Jinx is craving some excitement, so we're boosting her passive to make her pop-off moments really pop, and letting her wreak more havoc across the map with her ult. Flame Chomper's range is also getting a slight increase to work better with Fishbone's basic attacks. Everybody panic. This is totally not an arcane buff, and arcane champions are going to get buffs and skins in the coming weeks, by the way. I'm not leaking anything, this isn't confirming or denying anything, etc, etc. But with that being said, yes, so the passive, get excited, the total attack speed is going from 15% to 25%, and also there's some lethal tempo changes on the PvE that I want to talk about in a different video, but just keep this in mind, because this combined with the lethal tempo changes that are coming, could be a really nice marriage, actually. The E Flame Chompers, the range is going from 900 to 925. I joked about this and said, because of, mobility creep and stuff, it's nice. But also with Fishbones' attack speed, or not attack speed, but attack range being increased several patches ago, this kind of feels a bit more nicer with it, where you throw that down at a further range, and Fishbones can hit it from a further range, etc. That's pretty cool. And then finally, of course, the Super Mega Death Rocket is going from a cooldown of 90, 75, and 60 seconds to 75, 65, and 55 seconds. And I joked about this too, as well as if you're doing like an off-meta build that builds cooldown reduction, this is actually going to get insanely low by the time you get to like that 40%. I guess it's called haste now. But even just in general, like late game, you can kind of use this to scope out Dragon and Baron, and it won't feel like it's gone for as long. But it's more impactful in the early game when you're trying to get fed the most and get the snowball rolling, where it's a whole 15 seconds less versus that 5 seconds later on, which it still could be nice. 5 seconds adds up over time. If it's at 30 minutes when you hit that level 16, then it ends up being a 50-minute game. Right, that's 5 seconds per the next 20 seconds that you got back of extra ult time. So, if you're one of those people that are really into the numbers and math and stuff, like it adds up over time and it's still pretty neat. But that's really for the early game, that early game where you're in the laning phase and you're trying to execute people with the ult damage, because it still does more damage than your auto attacks, which by late game, unless they're across map, your auto attacks probably actually do more damage between their attack speed and the crit you probably have built if you're full build and it's really late game, etc. But these are still great buffs because, like I said, there's some preseason changes on the PvE that actually I think will go with these even better, which is probably maybe one of the reasons why these actually aren't even bigger than they are right now. And these are pretty big. I'm not saying there's like non-factor changes or anything like that. I think these are actually great changes, but I also think if it wasn't preseason, these probably would be bigger. But because they're not preseason and some of the stuff we've seen on the PvE, we'll go with this, especially the passive on the attack speed when Get Excited happens. It's going to actually be really, really nice. Now, again, mind you and note, it's my job to be very optimistic with y'all and give you guys reason to even kind of look the way of these changes. And I just feel like, oh, nothing's really changing. It's hopeless. So there you go. Especially all that like to experiment and stuff. Now you have, maybe something you can do with that. We will mention some other changes. Mainly the only other two changes I feel worth mentioning within this patch are Misfortune. Her base mana is being reduced and the W cost is being increased. So her base mana is going down, so she can't maybe pop those Qs as often in lane to harass you with. But the strut's also going down as well, which, remember, if you don't play Misfortune at all, she has built-in movement speed. That's already kind of ridiculous, and now she builds like Gale Force, which gives her more movement speed, but you can also pop the W to actually just go faster as well. And so what they're doing here is they're making that part cost a bit more, so it's a little bit, like, slightly harder for her to chase down a target than it is currently. So she kind of has to really pick and choose what target she's going to chase down now, instead of just kind of being able to do it, I guess, more often. Now, granted, you might be saying it's only 15 mana in like late game, depending on her build, especially because she actually does build Lethality legitimately as one of her builds, and Lethality has a lot of mana items that you can possibly build in there. That might not matter too much later on, but early game, again, which is where a lot of these changes seem to be focused, that is going to matter. And it's gonna matter if she's like, if you and your support are low health, she's gonna have to choose to kill one of you instead of both of you, perhaps, because she's already used up a lot of mana, and she doesn't have enough mana between the cooldown and stuff to use this twice to chase you both down, or something like that. Scenarios like that where it's like, instead of a double kill that was maybe guaranteed, it's like maybe she can get the double kill, but she's gonna have to really work for it. She's gonna really have to strut her stuff, if you will. And the other change, of course, that I want to talk about too is Xayah, because the base movement speed is being increased and the cool cooldown is being decreased late. So basically the TLDR up here, why I wanted to talk about Misfortune, is like the Jinx Misfortune matchup. And you can look at this and think of, okay, well, if I'm Jinx, how does this work, by the way? Which we're going to do with Xayah as well, where the base movement speed is being increased and the Q cooldown is being decreased late. We carefully buff Xayah quite a few times this season to help her non-pro performance, but she's still pretty weak across the board. Her damage is already pretty sharp, so we're buffing her ability to set up feathers. So her movement speed is being increased by 5, so it's 5 more than Jinx, because Jinx has permanently always been stuck at 325. But the Q, the double daggers, the Q or cooldown is going from 10.9876 to 10.8.577, 5.5 and 4 seconds. So it's actually going to be smaller late game with the Q. I wonder if people max that first. I always find myself personally maxing W on Xayah, but I also do this really old school build on Xayah where I get Infinity Edge, Black Cleaver, Runon's Hurricane, and it's pretty disgusting when it works, but it's not the meta build, so I don't know if that's really viable right now. But if you're playing as Jinx against this, she's going to be a little faster, right? Only a little faster. If you can get your boots first or even early, that kind of just negates that entire buff in laning phase against her as Jinx. This one's the one's going to probably matter more if this becomes like the new first max, because she'll be able to get this by level 9 instead of if she maxes like W or E first, in which case she wouldn't be getting to the max part at least for quite some bit. So, honorable mention that I will say as well is way down here, because it's the Kaisa. She's getting a Lagoon Dragon skin, and the thing about that means is that people will probably be playing Kaisa this patch. Maybe not as often as the really meta AD carries, but some people, you know, definitely Kaisa mains and stuff, they're going to probably want to be playing this skin and their champions. So not only will you be going against Kaisas this patch, you'll be going against Kaisas that probably main the champion whether she's meta or not, because it's like, oh cool, my champion's getting a skin. So there you go, just keep that in mind. Oh, I forgot, when you click a skin, it takes you to like a whole other page. But that's probably it for this patch. You know, besides the new skins, there's some item changes as well, but they're kind of what and what. But that is patch 11.21 in terms of changes to Jinx, changes that might affect Jinx as well, mainly in the laning phase. There's some other changes, obviously, to other champions. I just don't know if any of them will really affect her. Like, maybe you could say Graves. We don't really see bot lane Graves, you know, but stuff like that. But, like, here's a list of all the changes completely. Some item changes, some rune changes. None of those. Like, I don't think this Guardian Jinx is going to be a thing on 11.21. But anyways, that's all for this video. So thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification, the actual subscribe button. But I don't know which video will be next, because I can have a lot of kinks. So until next time, take care. ggGetJinxed. Thank you for watching, and enjoy pizza responsibly.